Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the 8A Stars 3 GWAC Business Development Webinar. This is really an opportunity for our team to share information with you that we've gathered over the years that have been effective for our industry partners, some tips and some tools of the trade and some resources that may be valuable to you as you make those first steps into an agency and trying to get your first award on the 8A Stars 3 GWAC. So I just wanted to briefly introduce myself on video. My name is Lori Jennings. I am the 8A Stars 3 Program Manager. So essentially my role is to help with business development and to instruct and teach customers on the best methods of use for the Stars 3 GWAC. The very end of this slide deck will actually have our point of contact information. And as you already know, you can reach out to us at any time at s3@gsa.gov. So a little bit of housekeeping here. Everybody is on mute at this time, but we do have a Q&A pod if you have any questions that you want to send in to our team. I would encourage you to wait a little bit. The information that you might be asking about might be shared in a further slide. So if you can hold off on questions for a little bit, let's go through some of the material, provide that information to you, and then we'll address any questions that you might have. If for some reason we do not get to your question today, you can always reach out to our team at s3@gsa.gov. So let's go ahead and get started. What are the GSA GWACs? So GSA manages multiple GWACs. We have two offices. The first is our Enterprise GWAC division, and generally that group is in San Diego, California. And the Small Business GWAC division, who you're speaking with today, is located in Kansas City, Missouri. The enterprise team manages the Alliant 2 GWAC, which is an enterprise-wide, generally other than small contract for IT services. And then, of course, our team manages the Small Business GWACs, and that includes VETS 2, which is a service-disabled veteran-owned small business set-aside GWAC, and the 8A Stars 3 GWAC, for which most of you on the call are industry partners who have been awarded a prime slot within cohort number 1. We are also working on the Polaris GWAC, which is a small business GWAC set aside. And they have a website at gsa.gov/Polaris if you would like to review additional information on that planned contract. So let's talk a little bit about small business GWAC features and benefits. These are things that you might want to be promoting to your customers when you are out talking with them. Obviously good icebreakers, but really just the basics for GWACs and knowledge for contracting officers that you should be aware of. First off, GWACs are multiple award IDIQ contracts. And essentially what that means is that we have awarded to multiple industry partners for the use by contracting officers to issue task order awards. The small business GWACs, including 8A Stars 3, have best in class designation. And essentially what that means is we've been designated by the Office of Management and Budget as a best-in-class solution for government spend. That's a great feature to mention when you're talking to your customers because a lot of them have been delegated to use best-in-class solutions. So 8A Stars 3 has received that designation. Obviously, when using the small business contracts, including 8A Stars 3, the agency does receive socioeconomic credit. They do have guidelines for use of industry partners in achieving socioeconomic credit. So you can find more information about that at SBA, but they do identify percentage-wise what agencies should be spending with socioeconomic categories. When using the GWACs, there is limited protestability. I encourage you to be familiar with that because that is a great feature when you are talking to your customers. And essentially at $10 million and below, the protestability is limited to the project being out of scope, that we have achieved the maximum value of the particular GWAC, or that the time has lapsed on the GWAC. And since, of course, we've just started 8A Stars 3, that really is limited in protestability because obviously we have that $50 billion ceiling and we have task orders that can have a long-term solution because we've just awarded for that 5-year base and 3-year option. Flexible ordering for a contracting officer includes ordering from their agency directly or using an assisted acquisition service such as GSA's Assisted Acquisition Service or AAS. If you're talking to a customer who needs that additional level of support with assisted acquisition services, reach out to us and we'll put you in contact with the AAS office close to that organization. GWACs follow ordering procedures in accordance with FAR 16.505, which include streamlined ordering procedures. You might want to be familiarized with FAR 16.505, especially the multi-phased approach, which is a process in which an organization can put out a phase 1 part of the procurement to identify interested industry partners, and then a phase 2, which is that full solicitation. From an industry partner perspective, you'll need to be familiar with that because you may see task order RFPs that come out in a multi-phased approach, wherein again, there's a phase 1 to opt in or opt out and a phase 2 with the full solicitation. GWACs provide worldwide geographic coverage. Even these 8A contracts, which some contracting officers think of as small and not for worldwide coverage, do provide those solutions and have provided those solutions in the past on our previous STARS GWACs. We also have that highly qualified pool of contractors. Many of you have industry credentials and other designations that we encourage you to share with your customer because they may be looking for those specifically. So let's talk about the 8A STARS 3 team. My teammates will be sharing information as we go through this presentation, and they'll provide a quick video introduction to them. But just so that you know our team, it consists of myself, Herman Lyons, and Belinda DeVore. And we were all involved with the previous STARS 2 GWAC and our other GWACs as well. So we're bringing a wealth of knowledge to the table to provide you assistance in getting your foot in the door and getting those task order awards. So let's talk about the previous contract, the 8A STARS 2 GWAC. This is just a summary of information from the 8A STARS 2 GWAC as of yesterday. The obligated value is $12.9 billion. So that actually represents actual dollars already spent on the 8A STARS 2 GWAC. And then the estimated value is $17.7 billion. So if customers exercise all of their options on those task orders, that will take us to $17.7 billion. So quite a lot of money has been filtered through these 8A contracts to our small disadvantaged businesses. There were 6,077 task orders issued on the 8A STARS 2 GWAC. And just a particular note here, about 91% of those were sole source or directed to one industry partner under that 8A sole source capability. What that means for you particularly is most of those task orders come about because of market research and outreach by the industry partner. So there's not really a repository of opportunities for sole source. It's really a relationship building between the industry partner and the customer. About 9% of task orders are competitive. In general, those are listed on GSA's eBuy, but customers can utilize other methods, including email. The 9% of competitive task orders are generally those that are over that threshold for sole source and are competed amongst the industry partners within the selected area. And we'll talk about those areas in just a moment. The average task order size on the 8A STARS 2 GWAC was $2.9 million, and that would be for the life of the task order. And just a note, the average time to win a first task order for those industry partners that were on 8A STARS 2 is about 18 months. So there's a lot of marketing and outreach that goes into receiving that first task order award. Don't be discouraged, but definitely reach out to us if we can assist you and utilize the tools that we're providing you with today in order to get your foot in the door and work on those first initial task order awards. Some additional contract information that I mentioned previously is there a $50 billion program ceiling. So we're at the very beginning of the contract, so we have a lot of ceiling left and time left on this particular GWAC. The notice to proceed was issued on July 2nd, meaning that we are open for business and you can at this time receive task order awards under your contract. The primary NAICS for the 8A STARS 3 GWAC is 541512. It is not limited to just that. So essentially anything that is IT services in nature and predominantly IT services could fall within the 8A STARS 3 GWAC. If you have a customer that isn't sure if their requirement is a good fit, we'll do a scope review, which Herman will talk about a little bit later on, to help them understand if this particular GWAC is a good solution for their requirement. So primary NAICS is 541, 512, but it can include some of those other NAICS such as 541, 513, 541, 519, 541, 511, and more. There are two scope sub-areas on the 8A STARS 3 GWAC, and the first is emerging technology. So those of you who are industry partners who are awarded within the emerging technology can provide services within that particular area. The second scope area is OCONUS, for those projects that would be outside of the continental United States. For customers who have requirements within those particular sub areas, they would be going out and issuing the solicitation within that scope sub area. So for those of you who are now familiar with eBuy, which everyone should have access to, you may see a requirement that's placed in the main area of 8A STARS 3, the emerging technology area, or the OCONUS area. And we'll talk a little bit more about eBuy in a later slide. Some reminders that I wanted to touch on before we go into some of the specific details and resources. Sole source task orders are allowed up to that competitive threshold, and an SBA offer and acceptance is required. We are providing some assistance to our customers and also to you by providing the SBA contact information on our website, as well as a draft offer and acceptance template. So those tools are available on the 8A STARS 3 website under resources. I mentioned eBuy briefly, but eBuy can be used for competitive task orders and RFIs. I definitely encourage you to provide feedback on RFIs. From working on the STARS 2 GWAC, I'm aware of many situations where a customer just needed to know, can I use STARS 3? Do you have industry partners who have this particular experience, these types of credentials, and more? So we encourage them from our side to send out an RFI, because it is impossible for us to know everyone on the contract's capabilities, experience, credentials, and more. So eBuy is a great resource for customers to do those RFIs. And then of course we encourage them to use eBuy for issuing RFPs as well that are competitive in nature. As I mentioned, it is a 5-year base with a 3-year option. The base period is July 2nd, 2021 to July 1st of 2026. And then if we exercise that option, that would go 3 years beyond that, from July 2nd, 2026 to July 1, 2029. Therefore, that puts a total task order period of performance, if the option is exercised, from July 2nd, 2021 to July 1st of 2034. So definitely the capability for long-term solutions for contracting officers. That is a great feature when you're talking with them, that they don't have to limit the period of performance unless there are agency policies. It just must fall within the task order period of performance of this master GWAC. Again, as I mentioned, STARS 3 has 2 sub areas, but it does not have constellations or functional areas like STARS 2 did. So we've had some customers who have asked us that question, how do we know which constellation or functional area? That is not the case on STARS 3. We've streamlined that, and we simply have the main area, which includes all awardees, and then the 2 sub areas if you did qualify for an award within that sub area. Some tools and assistance that we can provide to you from our team. Obviously, we'll review any marketing materials. We'll take a look at brochures, websites, etc., and let you know if we have any feedback for you, suggestions, etc. I know you probably have seen an email from our team recently to let us know what your website is. We can take a look at that and make sure it has the required information per the contract, but also marketing material reviews as well. So if at any time you have new marketing material, definitely send it in to s3@gsa.gov. We'd be happy to review and provide suggestions. We're also here to work with your customers. So if you have a customer who would like to know more about GSA, like to know more about the 8A STARS 3 GWAC, we would be happy to engage in that conversation with them. We would encourage you to do a soft introduction. Generally, that's by email to your customer and CC us saying, I'd like to connect the 2 of you. This is the individual from the agency, and this is GSA. If you have any questions, you all can at this point communicate and discuss, and I'm here to assist. That's a really great introduction for a customer who just doesn't understand the process. We'll walk them through the ordering steps and how to place a task order, as well as the delegation of procurement authority process. So we're really here to answer questions. If the customer wants us to do some training, either for a small group or a agency-wide, and we'll talk them through the ordering procedures and processes. We're also here to help with GWAC resources and tools, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. I know we're going to talk about a few of them in upcoming slides, and of course, answer questions for you and for the customers on those particular tools. At this time, Herman Lyons is actually going to go in a little bit more depth on 8A Stars 3 marketing, and I'll be back in a later slide section to talk to you about eBuy and some external resources. So Herman?
Perfect, Lori. Thank you. First of all, I just want to say congratulations to all of you on the call. What a mighty task that you've accomplished to be awarded the 8A Stars 3 GWAC. So 2 thumbs up from me. A little bit about me. I'm also in Kansas City in Missouri, same place as the rest of the 8A Stars 3 team is. And I think I bring a little bit different perspective to the team. My first job out of college was actually for an 8A contractor in Kansas City, Missouri. And I had the task to figure out this government contracting thing and try to figure out this 8A designation and get this 8A designation and get this thing called the multiple award schedule. That was all new to me. So a few of the things that I'll be telling you today come from a little bit different perspective, but I've really enjoyed working with this team. I've worked with the 8A Stars 2 team since we awarded that contract, even before 2011. So as we transition from 8A Stars 2, I should say, as I transition from 8A Stars 2 to 8A Stars 3, you guys will probably hear a little bit more about me. So with that being said, let's go ahead and transition into the presentation, Lori. I'd like to go ahead and first start off with strategy, right? So your strategy is going to be more an art than a science. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The things that I talk about today, they may not be perfect for you, your scenario, your situation, but just be fluid with it. Before I get going in too deep, I'd also just remind you to go ahead and grab a pen or pencil and a sheet of paper. We are going to be talking about a lot of URLs today, and we're going to send the presentation out. But if you'd like to go ahead and jot down some websites to become familiar, go ahead and do that as well. And then lastly, the last thing I'll say before we dive in is I like to tell people that acquisition professionals are no different than anybody else in that they procure from people they know, people they like, and people that they trust, okay? The know is very, very important. As Lori mentioned, over 90% of the task order awards issued on the 8A Stars 2 GWAC were sole source orders that I can almost guarantee you were established because of relationships, okay? People do business with people who they like. They may not necessarily like you on the most personal level, but they like doing business with you. And lastly, can an acquisition professional trust you? You know, as an acquisition professional, every task order has a certain amount of risk, right? And we want to reduce the risk as much as we can. So can they trust you to deliver? So as you think about putting your strategy in place for 8A Stars 2, 8A Stars 3, think about know, like, and trust, okay? So going into the slide, know your core capabilities and how to sell them, meaning who you are, what you provide, and why that is important. You should be able to clearly communicate each one of those things to every acquisition professional that you come across that you want to tell your story to. Sell the services that you provide while leveraging the 8A Stars 3 GWAC, okay? Keep in mind, contracting officers aren't buying the 8A Stars 3 GWAC. Contracting officers are procuring the services that you provide, and we think that the 8A Stars 3 GWAC makes this vehicle a little bit easier. I can remember as a young professional going to an industry event after we were able to obtain our 8A designation, and I walked up to a contracting officer and I said, "Hi, my name's Herman, and I'm an 8A company." And he looked at me and he said, "It's nice to meet you, Herman, but we don't buy 8As." So keep that in mind. You're selling the services that you provide, and 8A Stars 3 is going to make it easy or more efficient for a contracting officer to procure, okay? Know your contract and the ordering process. So this 8A Stars 3 GWAC, it's new to all of us, right? And we don't expect you to know the contract from beginning to end and every clause and every term, but you should know your contract enough to where somebody might ask you, what is the period of performance? What is the task order duration? You should know the contract scope. You should know the contract types that are allowed. You should know the competitive threshold. You should know the delegation of procurement authority process. And all of those things are listed in your master contract. So if there was one thing that I say you guys get started with, it would be to open that contract and just see what your contract says, because I guarantee you, as you speak to someone, they're not going to know what 8A Stars, the 8A Stars program is, and you're going to be responsible for filling them in and catching their attention and doing those type of things. So again, know your contract and know the ordering process, okay? Create a strategic plan. I can't tell you how many industry partners I've spoken with over the past decade who want to be everything to everybody simply because they have an 8A GWAC. You have to keep in mind that the federal government is huge, right? We've got a huge federal landscape, and you can't just go market to everybody or reach out to everybody who's got an 8A RFP on the streets, okay? What we found out over the past decade is that the most successful industry partners target market about 4 to 5 federal agencies. They target market those agencies. They really get to know the pain points of those agencies, and they market deep. Rather than spreading their roots wide, they market deep within those agencies, okay? Think about a particular agency. Imagine how many groups do procuring. Imagine how many groups have a need for IT. Imagine how many bureaus do this or do that. It just gets overwhelming. So starting off, keep it simple. Identify 3 to 4 agencies that you want to work with. If you have existing customers, what I would do is I would start there and just introduce them to, hey, I've got an 8A Stars 3 GWAC. If there's an opportunity for a follow-on, I'd like to go ahead and introduce you to that vehicle as well, okay? Do not wait for e-buy requests for proposals. Lori mentioned this a little earlier. I know that after we had the e-buy training a couple weeks ago, there were several phone calls and several emails saying, hey, I'm not seeing anything on e-buy. Is this contract broken? And the reality is that e-buy is used for competitive requests for proposals, and oftentimes, RFIs and sources sought. Even industry partners on the 8A Stars 2 GWAC in year 8 or year 9 call me up and they say, hey, Herman, how come this vehicle isn't doing anything? And, I go look at my resources and I say, I don't understand what you mean. We have 6,000 task orders awarded on the 8A Stars 2 GWAC. So just know the opportunities that you're going to be creating yourself are going to be through developing relationships and winning those sole source orders. Now, that's not to say you guys aren't going to win some competitive task order award. You guys are phenomenal companies, and we have no doubt that you will. But when you're putting your strategy together, one of the first things you should identify is, are we going to procure, are we going to pursue these sole source orders, or do we have the bandwidth to compete for competitive orders as well? So keep that in mind. And then lastly, as Lori mentioned, we have several contracting officers who say, hey, we put out an RFI or sources sought on e-buy and nobody responded back. And so we've got to go ahead and cancel this acquisition now. We've got to change our approach. What I suggest is anytime you see an RFI, sources sought, whether it be in SAM.gov, e-buy, have an email template ready to go. And if it's not too much work, just go ahead and reply back to those folks and say, yeah, we're able to do this, we're able to do that. And over time, build a contact list, right? Or what we used to call a Rolodex, right? It's more than likely people who buy IT services today are likely to buy IT services tomorrow. So, if you answer or engage with 20 RFIs during the year, 3 years into the contract, you may have 60 to 80 different points of contact that you just reached out to, and they know who you are and you know who they are. So that's just an easy way to go ahead and expand your network. A little bit more on marketing tips. If we go to the next slide, Lori. Leverage your GWAC and GSA resources. We have developed a bunch of resources for you all and also your customers. And we're going to be going through those resources today. Now, we realize also you guys are going to have questions about these resources. And I hope that after this presentation, you feel really comfortable with Lori, myself, and Belinda that, if you just maybe have a little bit more questions about the resources, or if you're not quite sure if you're leveraging it towards full capacity, go ahead and get a hold of us. We're happy to help, okay? A reminder, collaborate with both Stars 2 and 8A Stars 3 industry partners. Expand your service offerings. I guarantee there are industry partners who do things that you don't do, and you do things that they don't do as well. Get to know the other industry partners on 8A Stars 3. Expand your offerings. Create new relationships. I guarantee they know people you don't, and vice versa. So just go ahead and reach out. Don't be afraid to, don't view everyone as a competitor. Create synergy, create a better offering together. Transition to open market 8A contracts to 8A Stars 3 task orders. I can tell you that one of the strategies or approaches that we're taking at the master contract level is that we're looking at every open market 8A opportunity, and we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we reach out to this customer, and how do we let them know about 8A Stars 3 and how 8A Stars 3 is now a best-in-class designated vehicle? And how do we remind them that the President's management agenda says they should use Tier 3 best-in-class contract vehicles as opposed to open market procurement? So that's an approach that we're taking, and we encourage you to take that approach as well. Remember, you guys have minimum sales requirement as part of the 8A Stars 3 GWAC. So again, if you've got some requirements, whether they're 8A open market requirements or an 8A requirement in some other method, I go ahead and suggest you taking a look at that and getting that transitioned over to 8A Stars 3, and that'd be one of the ways you knock out the minimum sales requirement in your contract. Leverage your SBA business opportunity specialist. When we talk about a strategy and a specialist over there, let them know your strategy. Ask what they think about their strategy. And be specific. Ask them, how can you help me with this strategy? Where do you fit in? Leverage those resources over there at the SBA. And lastly on this slide is be intentional, but be patient. As Lori stated, the successful industry partners on the 8A Stars 2 GWAC, it took them about 18 months to get ramped up. We don't want you guys to go all in for 6 months and then get discouraged, etc. Just keep in mind that it took a while. It took a while for those folks to get going. One thing I might suggest is that you guys go ahead and collaborate with those Stars 2 industry partners, like I just mentioned a few minutes ago, and ask them, hey, what would you do different during the first year of your contract? They might have some really, really good gems for you, but be intentional, but be patient. And next, we'll go ahead and talk about the delegation of procurement authority. We often refer to this as DPA. So if you hear us talk about DPAs over the life of the contract, it's just delegation of procurement authority. And what it is really familiarization, or I should say the required familiarization by a contracting officer of the 8A Stars 3 GWAC. Now, DPAs are required before issuing task order awards. And in our case, the DPAs are issued by GSA. We only issue these DPAs to federally warranted contracting officers, okay? Now, you all will run into federal acquisition professionals who don't have a warrant. And one of the questions they're going to ask you is, can I attend DPA training? And your answer is going to be, yes, you can, because we realize it takes an entire acquisition team to get a task order award cut successfully. But just keep in mind that we're only issuing delegations of procurement authority to federally warranted contracting officers. Now, there are a few different options on how an acquisition professional, or I should say how a contracting officer would receive their DPA. Number one is regularly scheduled trainings. GSA.gov/events. That's one of these websites I want you to go ahead and write down. We have all of our DPA training, all of our scheduled DPA training on this page right here. So when a potential customer asks you, hey, I heard we got to get this DPA training, where can I go to register? You know immediately, because the 8A Stars 3 team told you that they can go to GSA.gov/events in chronological order, and all they have to do is find the next 8A Stars 3 training. We also realize that not all acquisition professionals, especially this time of the year, have the capacity to sit through a 45-minute training provided by us. And so we've given them some self-paced choices. The number one choice that you'll see is the ordering guide. We've got our ordering guide, which is written by contracting officers for contracting officers. They can review the ordering guide, and if they feel comfortable with the terms and conditions and everything the ordering guide said, they can request their DPA. Next is YouTube. We did have 8A Stars 2 YouTube training, which is currently being taken down, but I'd like to tell you we are on target for September of this year to have 8A Stars 3 DPA training hosted on YouTube. So again, your customers, you could simply direct them to the YouTube training. That's something that if I were you, I'd probably embed that in my website so they could get to that YouTube training right off your website. And once they're done with that, they've met the requirements. These next two resources, the Defense Acquisition University and the GSA IT Acquisition University, you're likely not very familiar with those, but acquisition professionals are. So, you know, if you're talking about DPA, feel free to throw out the DAU and the GSA IT Acquisition University. Those are some online classes in which they can take those DPAs at their will. Again, if your customer has questions and you're unable to answer that question, that's no harm, no foul, right? Send them to us and we'll get them taken care of. And then lastly, another website I want you to write down, gsa.gov/GWAC DPA. No matter whether they go to training or if they watch the YouTube video or the ordering guide, All contracting officers who are going to be requesting a 8A Stars 3 DPA must go to gsa.gov/GWAC DPA. Once they get on that page, they'll see some drop down in menus and they'll hit submit. And it takes us typically about 2 business days, and we'll have the delegation of procurement authority in their inbox, and they can go ahead and issue task order awards. Something very important is that the DPA lasts for the life of the contract. So if your customer changes agencies or whatever, they don't have to get a new DPA for 8A Stars 3. We just ask that they send us an email and say, hey, I've changed agencies, I've changed addresses. Can you go ahead and update my DPA file? So just keep that in mind, because that's a question that's going to go ahead and come up. We've got a little bit more on slide number 14 about DPAs. And I want to just go ahead and break it down to you. And I'm going to give you some truths, okay, about DPAs. There's a lot of misconceptions about DPAs. Number one, not all DPA holders issue task order awards. Speaking with Lori this morning, she told me we have about 340 DPA holders. I know Lori and team were just providing a DPA training about an hour ago. And I'm going to make the assumption that there's probably close to 380 DPA holders now. Not all of these folks issue task order awards, okay? Just keep that in mind. People take DPA training for a variety of reasons. Maybe they want the continuous learning points. Maybe their agency mandated they take the training. Maybe there's an agency-wide mandate that they should be familiar with all best-in-class vehicles. So just keep that in mind. People take DPA training for a myriad of reasons, and just because someone has a DPA doesn't mean they're interested in issuing an 8A Stars 3 task order award. DPA lists are not shared. So please don't call any of us on the team and say, hey, can I get a list of all the DPA holders? Because we're going to politely tell you no. When customers come to us and they obtain training, they're not signing up to be bombarded with calls from hundreds of industry partners who have the ability to do sole source awards and just get bombarded. You know what I mean? They want to receive the training. They want to learn about the 8A Stars 3 GWAC, and they don't want to be spammed with email messages. So please understand that's why we do not share those DPA lists. And lastly, DPAs are issued very, very quickly. A common question that we receive is, oh, how quick can I get a DPA? I don't have time to get a DPA, et cetera. And that's one of the very reasons why we created those self-serving options, such as reading the ordering guide. I'm going to be honest with you. I've seen some contracting officers become familiar with the ordering guide in a matter of 10 minutes, and I've seen them become familiar with the ordering guide in a matter of 10 days, okay? It's up to them. It's self-service. However, when they come to gsa.gov/GWAC, GWAC request, GWAC DPA, we're not going to get their request, and we're not going to ask them, did they pass a test, and we're not going to sit on the request for 7 or 8 days. Within 1 to 2 business days, typically within 2 business days, we're going to approve their request for DPA, and we're going to send them a memorandum of agreement. And that agreement, for lack of a better term, is going to remind them about a few things, and it's going to say, welcome to the family. So when somebody asks you how long this process takes, you know, be sure and reiterate that it's just a matter of days and not a matter of weeks, okay? So one thing that I would suggest to you all is to create DPA holders. Introduce your customers to the 8A Stars 3 GWAC. Share the training schedule that's online. And again, once we get the YouTube training up, and we're going to send an email whenever it gets up, embed that into your website. So when potential customers come to your website, you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? They see a video, they click on it, and before you know it, they've requested their DPA because of something that you've done. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell a story, and this story isn't a perfect reflection of DPAs or not, but it's really helped a lot of industry partners understand DPAs over the past 10 years with 8A Stars 2. I like to tell the story about 2 shoe salesmen, and 2 shoe salesmen who they found out there's a remote village, and these 2 shoe salesmen are going to go into this remote village and they're going to sell their shoes, right? Shoe salesman A goes into the remote village, and he's really, really bummed out because when he gets there, he finds out that nobody wears shoes, and it's a bummer. He feels like he wasted his time, he wasted a trip, etc. Shoe salesman B goes into the same village a day later, and he looks around and he says, no one wears shoes. I've hit the jackpot. And so the reason I tell you that is because it's all about your perspective of things, right? When I engage with a contracting officer, if I was still in your shoes as an 8A contractor, when I engage with a contracting officer and they tell me that they have a DPA, that's fine and dandy to me, right? But I realize that they probably have a DPA because someone may have driven them to get DPA training. However, when I go to an event or when I go into an agency and I find out that a potential customer does not have a DPA, To me, that's the golden ticket, right? I can tell them all about the great services that I can provide. And I can also tell them about this 8A Stars 3 vehicle that I have. And I can tell them about, hey, there's these folks in Kansas City, they provide monthly webinars, and they also have these options for you to get training. You know, this might be something if you have a bit of time, why don't you go ahead and check it out? And I guarantee you what we're going to do as a team, we're going to tell them all the great features and benefits about the 8A Stars 3 GWAC. And when they're done with that training, and if they have an 8A requirement and they know you, they like you, and they trust you, I can almost guarantee that they're going to consider you for some of the work that they have. So rather than, trying to identify agencies who have the most DPA holders, maybe you want to look at it in a different perspective. Look at those agencies who don't have very many DPA holders. Let's find out why they don't have very many DPA holders. And maybe we can be that company that introduces them to 8A Stars 3 and get us set up for success. So remember, it's all about how you look at it. So now we'll go ahead and transition into some of the 8A Stars 3 resources that we have. Again, these resources were created by us. Some of them are GSA resources, some of them are GWAC resources, but we encourage you to leverage all of these GWACs. And if a GWAC resource isn't for you, we encourage you to go ahead and share it with your customer. So Lori, let's go ahead and switch slides and talk about the 8A Stars 3 website. GSA.gov/8A stars, GSA.gov/stars3. Hopefully you all have it saved as a bookmark. Hopefully you all are writing it down right now. If you don't, here's another shortcut that we have, GSA.gov/S3. So just know, in my opinion, and I think the team would agree, that our website is the most valuable resource that we have. On our website, you can identify an industry partner list with contract numbers. I can't tell you how many times folks call us in the Stars 3 program and say, hey, I want to issue a task order to company XYZ, but I don't know what their contract number is. We're going to tell them, hey, let's go to the 8A Stars 3 website. We're going to go ahead and show you where their contract number is. When a customer asks you what your contract number is and you just can't quite remember it, you're going to remember that, hey, Herman told me on that webinar that I can see my contract number on that industry partner spreadsheet, okay? Also on the 8A Stars 3 website is the master contract. A little bit different than some of the other contracts you may have. 8A Stars 3 has a master contract with the same terms and conditions for all of you, okay? For all of you, okay? So it's all the same. Go ahead and check out that 8A Stars 3 master contract. Become familiar with your vehicle, know what you have, be able to answer those questions. I guarantee you that one of the things going to happen is that customers are going to say, as you talk to them, customers are going to say, we don't use the 8A Stars 3 GWAC. And the reality of it is, I can almost guarantee they use the GWAC. They just have never heard about the 8A Stars 3 GWAC. And so that's a really, really convenient answer for them. But if you're able to say, oh, you've never heard about Stars 3, or you don't use Stars 3, let me tell you why you should think about using Stars 3, etc. The ability to go through that master contract and understand things and be able to clearly communicate these things is invaluable. So just keep that in mind. We also have an ordering guide written by our contracting officers for contracting officers, so be sure and remind them that that's there. We have our 8A Stars 3 pricing tool, which you expect to be launched within the next 2 weeks. If you're familiar with the 8A Stars 2 pricing tool, it's going to be the same format. We're just going to have different drop downs, and customers are going to have access to that. And also you're going to have quick access to see your labor rates should you need to be providing that to your customers. We'll also have links to the YouTube DPA training that I talked about. We've got our DPA training schedule. We've also got some links to some 8A Stars 3 brochures. And I'm not sure if you guys have really noticed, but within the past 3 weeks, we have a promotional video on our Stars 3 website. One thing that I would suggest is, number one, that you take a look at this 2 or 3 minute video. It's really, really well done. But what I would do as well, on the 8A Stars 3 website pages that you all submitted, I would highly suggest that you all consider embedding this link in your website. So, not only does a customer have to go ahead and read through everything you put on paper, but they actually see a GSA resource, a GSA done resource, and they can walk away with, yeah, that's okay. This vehicle is legit. This industry partner, what they're telling me is really maxing up with this vehicle. So check out that video on the homepage, embed it in your website, and yeah, go ahead and leverage that. The next thing we'll talk about is a little bit more about our websites and a few other things that we have. We do have, on the next slide, perfect, thank you, Lori. We do have agency memos that support our GWACs. So GSA.gov/GWACs, that might be a website you want to write down and that GWAC website, it can really get you to any GWAC website that we have, but we've got some policy memos that actually mention GWACs. I got to be honest with you, most of them say 8A stars 2. We're actually working right now to get those memos updated with customers so they reflect 8A stars 3. We also have a tool called the Advanced Scope Compatibility Review. We have a tool and we have a process. In a nutshell, if your customer's got a requirement and they're not quite sure if it fits the scope of 8A stars 3, I'll tell you what we'll do. We've taken the guesswork out of it. We've got a tool. They can go to this website. They can submit their requirement, and we will take a look at their requirement, and we will give them a response back in writing, and we'll say, we feel as though this is a good fit for the 8A stars 3 GWAC, or we feel that it's not a good fit. Keep in mind, let your customers know that it's fast. We get them a response within 5 business days, and it's free. It absolutely costs nothing. This is a value-added service that we provide. I've already talked about DPA requests a couple times, so I won't go there. But one of the resources that we have is our GWAC dashboards. Our GWAC dashboards, I'll have some images for you a little later on, but again, these can be accessed from our GWAC website. So with that being said, let's take a look at a couple different resources that we have online. The number one resource, the first resource that we'll talk about, not necessarily number one, is GSA's, what we call our centralized mailing list service. And that website at the top, I'd go ahead and encourage you to jot that one down, cmls.gsa.gov. So what we do at GSA is all these contract vehicles and contract offerings that we actually have brochures or publications for them. And what I'm showing you on this screen just happens to be a screenshot of the 8A stars 3 publication or the 8A stars 3 brochure. And what's really cool is that you can get this brochure in a couple different ways. You can download it to PDF and feel free to go ahead and send it out to customers. But a really, really cool thing is that you're able to you're able to order free copies. Now, we're still working on getting our inventory up, but there's probably going to be a limit of 25. So you'll be able to order 25 copies of this hardstock brochure. When you go to conventions, when you go to industry events, when you go meet with customers, and if you don't have a specific brochure for 8A stars 3, feel free to go ahead and leave this one behind. Again, it's got the GSA star mark up top. And we created this for you to go ahead and share with your customers. So keep that in mind. If you have any questions, let us know. But again, free resources. Another one that we have in this next slide is also the Centralized Mailing List Service, CMLS. And this is a GWAC tabletop display. So we had industry partners say, when we go to events, a lot of times we see people who have signs and it says GSA schedule holder, or GSA this or GSA that. So we went ahead and had one created that says government-wide acquisition contract holder. It's about an 8x12. It's hard. It's a little stand that you can put on your table. And again, go ahead and remember that you can order one of these. Now, there is a publication number, as you guys see in this slide and the one before, like this one, 0517000462. That's a really, really easy way for you to search that publication number. So just keep that in mind. We've got some promotional material out there for you. As we go on in the contract, it's likely that we'll develop some more promotional material. And when we do, we'll go ahead and send you an email and let you know that that's out there. Okay. Now let's talk about the GWAC dashboard. I mentioned the GWAC dashboard a little earlier, and a lot of people have called me since the 8A stars 3 was awarded. Want to know a little bit about this dashboard. So let me tell you. The GWAC dashboard, number one, it's accessible from our GWAC websites, okay? There's no log on, not log in, publicly accessible. Anyone can look at GWAC data. What the GWAC dashboard does, it displays data by GWAC, federal agency, and industry partner. So for example, if you say one of my strategies is going to be to look at those 8A stars, the number of 8A stars 2 task orders, and where the majority of the 8A stars 2 task orders were awarded over the past 5 years. You could go into the GWAC dashboard and you could find that information. Those things that Lori was telling you about a few minutes ago, the number of task order awards, the number of sole source orders, and all that good stuff, we just simply go to the dashboard and we find that. So keep in mind, the dashboard displays data by GWAC, federal agency, and industry partner. I will ask the team that in the fall, we do specifically a webinar just on the GWAC dashboard where we can go out there live questions and I can show you guys all the bells and whistles, okay? Very important. The middle bullet here, the data source is the CPRM. I know we've talked about it, Gene's talked about it in past webinars, that the contractor payment reporting module is where you all enter task order data or where you validate task order data. The data source of the dashboard is the CPRM. So it's very, very important that you have data entered in that CPM correctly and accurately so that it appears on the dashboard correctly, okay? Our dashboards are updated daily. You can download data, and it contains both active and expired GWAC task order data. This is really important, right? I told you that yesterday, the 8A Stars 2 ordering period expired. However, you guys might still be interested in taking a look at 8A Stars 2 task order data, right? So we're going to keep 8A Stars 2 on the main screens through about the end of the year. And you'll see there's a tab called Data Feed where you can build your own reports. We'll keep 8A Stars 2 task order data in there indefinitely. And on the next slide, we have, and I should say that just about an hour and a half ago, I was able to approve an enhancement to the dashboard in which we've got our first 8A Stars 3 task order award in there. So we've got 8A Stars 3 in the dashboard. So here's a view right here on how you would get to the dashboard. You'll see on the left-hand side, we've got a link that says GWAC Dashboards. You would go ahead and click that link to get on the page that you're seeing now. And you would just go ahead and click the link that says View the GWAC Dashboard, the one that's circled in red on the right. And the following slide is going to show you what you would see. This is a brand new view when I print screen from just about an hour and a half ago. You will see bars and charts and lists and things like that. And really, really quickly, what I want to let you know is that when we're looking at this dashboard right here, we're looking at all GWACs. This is not just an 8A Stars 3 dashboard. However, you can go ahead and segment by 8A Stars 3. But really quickly, I can see in the top left-hand quadrant that the 8A Stars 2, 8A Stars 3, Alliant 2, and the VETS GWACs have received $19.3 billion in obligations, okay? I can see in the top right-hand quadrant that there have been 6,537 task orders issued. In the bottom left quadrant, I can see all of those agencies who issued those task order awards. And in the bottom right-hand quadrant, I can see all of the industry partners who won those task order awards. So again, we're not gonna spend a lot of time on this tool. We're gonna move on, but like I said, this fall, we'll go ahead and I'll do a live demo for you all, and you guys can see all the bells and whistles with the dashboard. One of the biggest features of our dashboard is that when we created this, we realized that, we think we gave you all some pretty good views, but really we realized that we don't know exactly everything that you want. Again, this is an art, not necessarily a science, right? And so what we've done is we've given you the ability to filter GWAC data by contract family, a functional area, scope sub area, contract type, etc., and for you to download that data into Excel. Let me give you an example. You may be interested in seeing all of the 8A Stars 2 task order awards that are going to be expiring in FY22. You could simply go through here, build the report that has those salient characteristics, click the download button, and it's going to create an Excel that has every single 8A Stars 2 task order award expiring in fiscal year 22. You may want to reach out to those company industry partners. You may see if they want to partner. You may want to see if there's a follow-on requirement, etc. So just keep the dashboard in mind. If you're interested in looking at GWAC data, definitely the GWAC dashboard is a great place to go. Lori, let's go ahead and transition on over to the 8A Stars 3 YouTube training. I've talked about it a couple times. We hope to have it in place by September 2021. It's currently under development, and just like 8A Stars 2, it can be accessed from the 8A Stars 3 website. It's going to allow the 8A Stars, CEOs to obtain their DPA when it's convenient. When they have time to take training, they can take training, specifically this time of year, right? Everybody's swamped and they may not have a 45 minutes to talk with Laura and I. Again, I've said it a couple different times, but we encourage you to embed the YouTube links on your websites and also remind customers that they actually have to request their DPA at gsa.gov/GWAC-DPA. Lori, we can transition on to our next slide, which is the 8A Stars 3 pricing tool. Actually, just to let you guys know, I have a meeting this week to take a look at the pricing tool. And if we provide approval for it, we probably can get this going in or around the week of Labor Day. But again, the 8A Stars 3 pricing tool is very similar to the 8A Stars 2 pricing tool. It's publicly accessible. You can get there from the Stars 3 website, and it displays time and material and labor hours ceiling rates only, okay? Now, it may be beneficial for firm fixed price, estimating cost buildup, etc., but just keep in mind that the 8A Stars 3 pricing tool is available for you and available for your customers. Your customers also have the ability to download the results into Excel so they can include that into their acquisition plan or their price file. Lastly, we've got some features on the tool which allow customers to see the maximum rates, minimum rates, and also the minimum, the median rates. And then the last slide that I'll show before I hand it back over to my partner in crime, Lori, is just a screenshot. This is actually a screenshot from the staging environment, in which you can see we've got main scope area in here, we've got the industry partners, we've got the labor categories, as well as the different experience levels. So just know that this is coming. And again, once these tools are ready for prime time, we're going to go ahead and send an email out to you all as prime contract holders and let you know that they're there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and stop talking, but I've given you a lot, right? And again, the most important thing that I want you to take away is a level of comfort with me and the 8A Stars 3 team, that we're here to help you, that we're here to help your customers. But what I do want to encourage you is, when you have a question, if you want to reach out, go ahead and take a look at that master contract. Take a look at that ordering guide. You know, it may be a good exercise for you to see if you can find the answer to the question. But should you need help learning something, should you need help with the customer and the features and benefits of Stars 2, just know the 8A Stars 2 team is here for you. So with that being said, Lori, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to you.
Thanks, Herman, and thanks for all the great information that you shared. I know it will be helpful to our industry partners and hopefully give them guidance in moving forward and using some of these tools and research capabilities that we've shared. I'm going to go a little bit more into eBuy. I want to talk about it from the buyer's perspective, so you understand what they see when they're in eBuy. This is the main eBuy screen. Once they log in, they have a few options. They can do a search, they can select, they can prepare. The first thing that generally is clicked on is to prepare an RFQ now, and that's the same button that they'll click if it's an RFQ or RFI. And then they'll have options. They can do some research to identify solutions, or if they know that they're going to go directly to 8A Stars 3, which we hope, they will click on technology contracts. And that will pull up GSA's entire suite of GSA technology solutions. And of course, if they're looking for the GSA GWAX, they'll click on GWAX. And particularly for Stars 3, they'll have 3 options. As I mentioned previously, we have the Stars 3 area, which is everyone who has been awarded on the Stars 3 contract. And then we have the Emerging Technology and OCONUS. So based on the customer's requirement, they could be selecting any or one of those. Let me state that again. They'll be selecting one of those 3 to put their RFI and RFP in. From that, they'll be able to see the entire list of the industry partners that are awarded within that grouping. So this screenshot is a couple days old. I think we've got almost everyone or everyone registered within the eBuy on that main area. The contracting officer will review this information, review the awardees, and then of course in that next step, upload their statement of work, identify the parameters and how responses are to be collected, and then submit that out to the industry partners. Of course, it looks a little bit different on your side as far as being able to see what has been posted by the customers, but just wanted to give you a perspective of what this looks like from the customer side. We've tried to make it as user-friendly as possible, where they're essentially just going through a couple of steps, uploading documentation, and then submitting that to your side. Again, you should only be able to see RFPs, RFIs, etc., on eBuy within the areas you are awarded. So if you are awarded on that main area only, you would not see RFPs and RFIs that were either issued in the emerging technology sub-area or OCONUS. Another tool that I would like to highlight is on acquisition.gov, and this is where you will find agency recurring procurement forecasts. So I know we've had some questions come into the s3@gsa.gov inbox where they've asked, where can I find agency opportunities, agency contacts, etc.? One of these resources would be acquisition.gov and the agency procurement forecast. It actually lists them by agency, and you can take a look at what their plans are for the next fiscal year and further into the future. So that might be another one that you want to bookmark as far as your research tools for agency procurements. Another we encourage is to work with the agency OSBU. So each agency has an Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization, and their job is to help contracting officers engage with industry and find solutions to help them meet their socioeconomic goals. So each organization should have an OSBU website within their overall web source. These websites could include things such as their procurement forecast for the upcoming year, such as needs, requirements, etc., an organization chart with points of contact, and upcoming planned events. So that actually might provide you with training that they are giving on their solutions, their requirements, their needs, or generalized training that they might provide on how to work with that particular agency. We encourage you to participate in outreach sessions that OSBUs offer. I know our GSA OSBU often provides sessions, generally once a month, on how to market your contract, how to do market research, things like that. So I encourage you to participate in that as well from each organization. They've also got training materials from any session that they may have previously held. They may also have brochures and things like that on how to do business with their particular organization. But the key thing to remember is that you need to understand how the agency procures. Where do they issue their RFPs? How do you get in the door to set up a meeting? What do you need to know in order to get into that particular organization? We definitely encourage you to consider mentor protege programs or partnerships, etc., as you're working on projects to meet agency solutions and talking with OSDBUs about the best way to approach solutions like that. As Herman had mentioned, obviously the tool that we provide to you is the master contract, but we encourage you to really get to know your particular targeted agencies in order to provide them with the solution that you are best at, so your core capabilities. And when you're reaching out to these OSBU offices and you're saying, hey, I'd really like to do some work with, for instance, Army. Can I come in and talk to you about what we provide and have a discussion on how I might best provide solutions to the Army organization? So that's really what the OSBU offices are about. They're there to help the agency meet goals, and they're also there to work with industry to help in coordinating that effort. PTAX is another resource to you that provides marketing and procurement assistance. The web link is there. Some of you may have utilized PTAX services in developing your response to the 8A Stars 3 solicitation. But their services are offered at low or no cost. And really their goal is to help small businesses compete within the federal marketplace. As Herman mentioned previously, we encourage you to get to know your small business opportunity specialist, attend any training opportunities that they might have either on a national or local level, meet with your assigned small business opportunity specialist on a regular basis, whether that's a phone call, in person, etc., so that they know that you're out there, they understand what you're trying to do, who you're marketing to, and provide any assistance that they may have to you. We also encourage you to respond to any SBA inquiries timely. They may be working with customer organizations as well who are seeking solutions. So if they're reaching out to you asking those types of questions, whether or not you have core capabilities in a particular area or industry credentials, definitely be responsive to SBA and really any of the organizations that might reach out to you. At this time, I'm going to introduce Belinda DeVore, and she is going to talk a little bit about some of those important contract deliverables that we've been reaching out to everyone via email so that we can make sure that we wrap up everything for the deliverables that were due following contract award. Belinda?
Good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations on your new award. I'm just going to cover some of the deliverables that are required by your contract. And I just want to introduce myself. My name is Belinda DeVore. I was the core on the Stars 2 GLAC. I currently work with the customers and industry partners on Stars 2 and Stars 3. I am going to turn my video now. So now we're going to go over a few of the deliverables that are required by your contract. Many of you have already submitted these information. Some have submitted and have got corrections that they need to be made. They've been requested of them. Some important reminders when submitting anything via email, please make sure you include your contract number in your email and where your email is in reference to in the subject line. This is very important. There are over 400 vendors submitting information on a daily basis, and without the contract numbers, it is hard for us to match up, and email can get lost in the cluster of emails that come in. First deliverable I will cover is that
Hey,
we,
Belinda, this is Herman.
Hello?
I don't want to stop you, Belinda, but we've had a few participants and they're having a hard time hearing you. I'm not sure if there's anything that you can do on your end, but
okay, let me switch here real quick. Is that it?
Can you hear me
Belinda,
better
I'm not,
now? Can you
yeah,
hear me now?
I think we can hear you much better now. Thank you, Belinda.
Okay. All right. So I don't know if you guys well heard, I just wanted to go over that we are going over the deliverables, a few of the deliverables that are required by our contract. A lot of you have already submitted this information. Some have submitted it and we are waiting for corrections to be made that we requested. Just a few reminders that when you submit anything via email to any of the STARS 3 team members, please make sure you include your contract number and whatever the email concerns in the subject line. This is very important. It helps us keep track of emails coming in with 400 vendors submitting information on a daily basis. Without that contract number, it's sometimes hard to match up information to which contract it belongs to. So the first deliverable I will cover is what we must have for your program manager assigned to your contract. We need their email, the phone number for that person. And if throughout the life of your contract, this person changes, you need to email s3@gsa.gov with the new information. Again, make sure you include your contract number along with program manager chain request in your subject line. The second deliverable you have is to submit your company webpage to our STARS 3 website, our email, so we can review it to make sure that all the STARS 3 contract information is required. We have submitted a Google form to people that have not submitted their webpage. So if you got the Google form, please submit your webpage through that Google form versus through an email. And then we'll email you an approval or if there's corrections needed. Please keep in mind that your webpage will help you market your contract. And many customers go to our industry page, information page, and pull up your webpage to find out information about your company. So they'll use that to find out your capabilities, to look. So if you don't have your webpage there, if you haven't submitted your webpage and got it approved, when we put that information on our spreadsheet, that'll be missing and the customer won't be able to access your website and be able to find that information about your company. Please, when you submit your webpage, make sure you have the minimum requirements, which are a link to our STARS 3 website. Make sure it's a link, not just the address. Make sure your master contract number is listed on there. Make sure it's your master contract number and not the solicitation number. Make sure your contractor's done or EI numbers on there along with the cage code. And then your program manager's contact information, their name, their phone number, their email, or if you just want their name, phone number, or just their email, but make sure there's a name associated with that and then a way to get a hold of them. And then our last deliverable that we'll be talking about is your shared company email. Things to keep in mind when you're submitting this. There should be nothing before the @ sign except for STARS3, STARS 3. So there should not be any abbreviation to your company name before the @ sign. It should be STARS 3 at yourcompanyname.com. And they're very specific about that, and you will get that sent back until it is just the STARS 3 before. So many of you have also submitted marketing material and have not heard back from us. I just want you to know that we are working on that. We are trying to get the web pages reviewed because those are required deliverable for the contract. So we want to make sure we get those web pages all reviewed and approved. So we're working on that. We have not forgot about your marketing material. I hope to get to that the end of this week, the beginning of next week, and start sending out those marketing material information. And there is a typo on the slide. It's supposed to be *3 and it says *3. Thank you for pointing that out. So make sure you send that to *3 or at your company name when you establish that email. So if you have submitted marketing material, you should be hearing back from us next week. And some of you might ask, why is it so important that we submit this information? This information goes onto our industry partner spreadsheet. So if there's program management information missing, or your *3 group established email is missing, or your web page is missing, when our customers go in and look, they look at those information and they look maybe for a program manager to contact to talk to you about your company. Or if some of our customers will use these spreadsheet to send out a competitive order versus eBuy, or they'll send out an RFI, the email. We encourage them to use eBuy. Some of them have issues with eBuy, so sometimes they'll use the spreadsheet and use the emails there. By not having your information on that spreadsheet, you guys could be missing business opportunities. So make sure that you submit all that information. And also on your group email, make sure that you have more than one person that has access to that group email, because if only one person has access and say someone decides to send out an RFI via email instead through the eBuy system because maybe the system's not working for them that day. So they send it out through the eBuy, through email, and they send it to all the *3, and only one person has access to it, and that person's on leave or has left the company. If they have a deadline, you take the chance of your company missing the deadline to respond to that, which is again a missed opportunity for business. So make sure you get those shared group emails up, make sure that several people have access to it so that if someone's on leave, someone else can get in and address anything that comes in. Make sure you have your program manager information submitted and your website submitted, and make sure your website have the minimum of this. And as Herman mentioned, having the link to the YouTube video is just a nice touch, because if someone's not really familiar with the *3 contract, that little 3-minute video is a great introduction to the *3 GWAC, and it's a great lead in for you to go in and talk to them. If they look at your website, they see that, and then they call you and ask questions. And I think that is it. Thank you for your time today. I hope you have learned some useful information and will be able to go out and put it to use. I don't know if Lori has any closing comments that she wants to add. But again, I just want to reiterate, when you send in emails, please make sure you put your contract number always in your subject line. I know you've heard that a million times. It's just very important so that we can actually relate your email back to your contract and know who it's from, instead of trying to track down what contract vehicle, which contract, master contract your email belongs to. And at that time.
Thanks, Belinda. I appreciate the information. We'll go ahead and wrap up this session today. I know we've answered a lot of questions in the Q&A pod. If your question still remains unanswered, please reach out to s3@gsa.gov and we'll address that from the email box. As Herman mentioned, we will follow up with you and provide a copy of the slide deck and also a recording. It will probably be later this week by the time we get the recording back, but we'll make sure that is sent to the program manager and the group email address as well. So I hope this session has been helpful to you with some tips and tricks for marketing your 8A Stars 3 GWAC. And if at any time you have questions or need assistance, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Again, the quickest way to reach our team is s3@gsa.gov. With that, I will go ahead and wrap up the session. Thank you again for attending, and don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions related to the Stars 3 GWAC.